Good evening, everybody. Um, I'm exhausted. I've shown no less than 7 spaces today in various different neighborhoods, from Nomad to Flatiron, Soho, but that is the lot of a commercial real estate broker. And I'm happy because it means I'm busy and hopefully I'll get a deal done. One thing which I noticed actually during my tour is that out of the 6 executives who attended, now this is a menswear, high-end menswear, luxury menswear showroom from Italy, I was the only individual not to be wearing sneakers. So that's a question for you. Do you think in this day and age it would be appropriate for me to wear sneakers? A hell of a lot more comfortable than the loafers I have. And the dress codes become more casual. Still wear my jacket, but I want some high-end, comfortable sneakers. Now, I read the comments yesterday, or from the WeWork post, which I think was put up on Monday. Very interesting. Very, very helpful. And there were certain questions which were posted. It all seems to kind of in a way tie in together and sort of relates, and I've been giving it a lot of thought, to Lewis's search for space. But before I get into that, I want to mention something about WeWork, because I forgot to a certain extent, or to a large extent, that most of you are not in New York City. You're all over the United States, and in fact, to a large extent, you're an international audience. So you may not be familiar with co-working and what WeWork is and why WeWork is so revolutionary. So I'm just going to quickly explain that, because it is something which has really impacted the real estate market internationally. WeWork applies to offices. Companies used to lease their own office space. That was the only option available. They'd have to sign a lease for generally a minimum of 2 or 3 years. This was tough for small startups because they didn't really have a time horizon, and difficult for them to commit when their companies weren't profitable. So along came the WeWork concept, I think around 2010, created by an entrepreneur by the name of Adam Newman, right next door to our office here at 349 Fifth Avenue. We're at 347 Fifth Avenue. What he would do, what Adam Newman did and what WeWork did, the concept they came up with, they'd lease an entire floor. They'd get small businesses to come in, let them sign a lease for a month, 3 months, 6 months, or a year, and charge them 3 times the rent that they were paying. So if Adam Newman at 349 Fifth Avenue, or WeWork rather, was paying $40 a square foot for a 10-year lease, each tenant would pay the equivalent, if you looked at the square footage they got, $120, $90. So in theory, it's a good business. And the added value also was that it created a community of entrepreneurs. And this way of leasing office space has taken off throughout the world, and it's a major option for small businesses. Now, whether that model is discredited with the difficulty that WeWork is going through, we will see. But it's an important factor in commercial real estate, which is predominantly what I'm involved in, what my company, Metro Manhattan Office Space, does. And I admit it, I'm one guy. I'm an individual. I'm a one-man shop, which is the way I like it. I don't want the hassle of having agents under me. Don't want to be in a large corporate structure. I control my life. If I want to work 18 hours a day, I can work 18 hours a day. If I don't want to set the alarm clock, which I confess I generally don't, I wake up when I wake up. Read my Wall Street Journal, drink 3 cups of coffee, and go to work. It's the way I like it. Requires a lot of discipline. It's not always easy, but I think it's a good lifestyle. So, some of the comments yesterday, I think the most popular one, which was like 404 times, was from Creepmobile 2. His comment was, Alan, I think a how to not get screwed by a tenant video would be extremely relevant to a lot of people. And I agree with him. I think that's a great idea. Another one, what was something else which would tie into this? This was kind of fun. John, I said, telling stories is always interesting. Toughest clients, worst deals, how a client was cheated, funniest deals, but we'll get into that. But particularly the Creepmobile 2 comment about not getting screwed ties in to Lewis's experience, because I think he really had the perception. And quoting him, he found that the real estate professionals he dealt with lacked ethics, morality, integrity, and honesty. And those were Lewis's exact terms. And it's interesting. I think what happened here, I suspect, but I'm not sure, is that Lewis did not select initially the right type of real estate professional to work with. He may have answered ads, say, on Craigslist, other advertisements, and he may have gone directly to building owners. And then there's really no ethics, because it's going to be the building's managing agent or the broker who represents the landlord, who's going to try to really extract the maximum they can from a prospective tenant. I'm thinking about Karen and the way she interacted with Lewis. I'm trying to think of a reasonable explanation. And for me, what makes sense is that she was the landlord's broker, that she had an obligation to get the best deal she could for that landlord. It would explain why out of the two spaces she showed Lewis, one was way over budget, one had an excessive loss factor, which she debated, which she shouldn't have, and why she tried to push him. And the giveaway for me is that she was so pushy. Because if she was a tenant rep broker, and it made no difference to her where Lewis went, she wouldn't have been pushy. She would have just said, okay, I'll find you another space. Or she would have learned something from the tour, or she would have never showed Lewis a space which exceeded the budget. Other possibility is she wasn't knowledgeable. Now, one thing to know about, and I think this applies to residential or commercial or any kind of real estate, you have to understand, if you're working with a broker, who that broker has allegiance to. What are their interests? Is it a right fit? Is that broker going to work on your behalf? Now, you may be in New Zealand. You may be somewhere in Europe. And I believe the demographics of Lewis's YouTube channel and mine are relatively young people. So you may find yourself buying a home in another 5 years or so, 10 years. Remember this. It's important. If you call on an ad, probably the broker's going to represent, an ad for a home is going to represent the seller of the home. They're not going to represent your interests. Just keep that in mind. And what might be a good idea, and I advocate this, and I might not have done so before I was in this industry, because now I kind of understand how it works. It's in your interest to have a buyer broker if you're purchasing a home, or a tenant rep broker if you're leasing space, say office space, showroom space, medical, retail space in New York City, because their allegiance should be to you. And they should have access to the entire listing database. And even more than that, they should be, if they've been around a while, they should be very familiar with the inventory. They should know the landlords. If, let's say, you're in a leasing market like New York City, or let's say you're in France, they should know the sellers. They should be very familiar. And they should be able to provide you, as a buyer, or a lessee, if you're going to lease an office space, a commercial space, a store, with some leverage. And they should be on your side. Doesn't even cost anything. I mean, I think there's a misconception. If you use a broker, it's going to add to the costs. And I don't think so, because I think if you have a good broker and they're knowledgeable, there's really an added value. I think that's important. But I mean, you have to interview the broker. You need to know that they've been around and they know the market that you're in. You need somebody who's very familiar. Somebody like Karen. It's one explanation is that she was a landlord's broker and didn't really want to do much of a tenant rep job showing Lewis different space, which, I mean, she could have earned a commission doing that, but maybe she doesn't, she's not in that line of the brokerage business. That's not her niche. Another possibility, she doesn't know the market. Because what happens with these real estate requirements, they get so particular. I mean, a situation like the Rossman Group, a lot of traffic. Probably better for retail. There are some office tenants who would take that use. It has to be packaged the right way. That takes a certain amount of experience. I mean, a broker who would call an easy landlord and tell him 100 visitors a day would scare them away immediately. A broker would tell him, look, very evenly paced, 6 or 7, 8, sometimes 10 an hour. Take him to an easy landlord with 4 elevators. It might fly. There's buildings like that. I had a building like that for Lewis in Manhattan. Showed him space. He didn't like it very much. Fine. I think the retail space which he got is excellent. I'm not counting that as a done deal. Crossing my fingers. I think everything will work out fine. In fact, I never count my deals as done until the lease is actually signed. Regarding Karen, if she's starting in the industry, I wish her luck. Hopefully this is a learning experience. Every broker, the majority of their deals, the tenants I work with, they don't get deals out of them. I must have, my hit rate is maybe 1 out of 10. I'll work with 8 or 9 clients or customers before I get something. Very, very uncertain business. What I would say about this industry, you need a thick skin. You need to have leather skin to survive, and you need to be experienced. If you ever hire or have a broker represent you in your search for residential property or commercial property, be sure that they're experienced. Interview them. I would say tenants get screwed the most. The cardinal mistake to make. This is answering Cretemobile's question. Cardinal mistake. Not hiring a good broker to represent your business and not seeing who that broker's allegiance to. So you call up a broker. Say you're looking for a space in New York City, commercial space, and you ask him to find you a space, and he's on a major landlord. He's representing a major landlord with 10 properties. What do you think's going to happen? He's just going to show you space in those 10 properties because he's not going to care so much about you. He's going to care about that landlord who has a portfolio of 3 million square feet because he wants to keep his job. It's very important to get a broker who whose allegiance is to you, who doesn't care where a deal is consummated. I'm in that category. I don't like exclusives for landlords. I feel very uncomfortable because every day I've done it a few times. Every day that goes by where space isn't leased, lost income for the landlord. Very, very high pressure. Whereas tenant rep, it's interesting. You're dealing with business owners. If somebody is totally unreasonable, you just stop working with them, which has happened. I've run into, I'm really 25. It's just my crazy customers make me look this way. So, I mean, I don't want to get too sarcastic, but you have some landlord leasing agents. They're totally unreasonable. It can be unreasonable. And I think what happened with Lewis, when he approached landlords, these were often small buildings. And I could see in the videos, because I looked at them very carefully today, they were not professional. Now, some of these larger landlords, their leasing agents are very well spoken, they're professional, they're reasonable, but they still represent the landlord. So get yourself a good broker if you're looking for a space. Get yourself a buyer's broker I would recommend if you're looking to purchase a residential property. What will probably happen in residential, in that case, the commission split, it's not going to cost you anything. You're going to see more properties, you're going to have more leverage, and you're going to save money. So I think that's it for today. On a technical level, I'm sorry, I'm new to this. A week ago, I had no idea what YouTube is. I got myself a Rode mic to put on my iPhone because and I hope this image is okay. I hope the sound is okay. Please confirm that, because I want to walk around in New York and take some photos of neighborhoods, buildings, so you can see. Unfortunately, I cannot anonymously tape or record my customers, but I'm looking into doing some, with their consent, obviously, interviews of customers in their new space, so you get a better understanding of how the process works, what's available in New York, learn a little bit about something about real estate in New York, which hopefully is going to serve you in the future. I actually have some images of some really cool space I saw today. I have to figure out how to splice that in to a video. That's the next technical hurdle. So far, I figured out how to get video out of my Sony A7 III, out of my iPhone. Now I got to learn how to edit the video. So it's a real steep learning curve. I mean, I'm from before the age of the internet, before email. It's very strange. Just all these new technologies. After a while, it gets a little tiring, but at the same time, it's astounding. So, any suggestions, ideas, questions, send them away to me. And thanks for listening to this, and hope it's not too long. Have a good evening. Bye now.